It's a good morning. This is Tammy Davis. Let me just show you something. Check out the fog. I love it. We don't see fog very much here in the desert, so I just wanted to share that with you. It is lifting, but if you want to see more, go to my Instagram. I took a little bit bigger video and of just the fog and some photos. However, the purpose of this video, as I walk the trail home, is actually, well, before I go any further, let me introduce myself. Tammy Davis. I practice aromatherapy, phytotherapy. I have a background in pharmacology where I focus on the study of drug development through the research of plant constituents. I also study plant constituents and their impact on the human genome. There's a lot of really cool stuff that science knows. I've talked about this in another video that's not being really publicly shared. So that is, and I just want to say, if you're new to my channel, welcome. There has been a request for me to investigate some things regarding broccoli seeds in another country. I will be posting on that here as well. I wanted to say thank you for that request, because these things are happening and we're not being told, it's not being shared with us. I should say these things are known. They're not just being shared. And so it's really what it comes down to, full disclosure. I mean, we deserve, I'm going to back it out a bit. We deserve to know how to be healthy. I mean, good health is our birthright. If we are struggling with our health, it's not our fault. It's not the body's fault. The body is working. If you are alive and looking at this beautiful scenery with me and listening to my voice, your body has served you well because you've at least reached this moment in time. So congratulations. However, my mission is to raise the bar for this. And so I've had a couple of other requests regarding somebody who's personal concerns. Well, I can't say that the Brussels sprouts, or yeah, the broccoli sprouts aren't, or broccoli seeds, pardon me, aren't a private concern, but they are also a public matter as well. And I just also want to say I did not get back to you directly through your messenger message, simply because I have been without internet and phone for the last several days, and the only way I can get anything posted and do any sort of technology-based interaction I'd had to go pretty great distances. There's another bank of fog to actually get it, because it was a 100-mile radius that was out, the outage. So I will be responding to you directly if I haven't already by the time you see this video. So now that all of that is in order, allow me to talk a little bit more about such things as parasites, invasive bacteria, you know, the kind that go dormant in the body, viruses such as Epstein-Barr, you know, these kinds of things. What I wanted to point out, I've talked about this countless times in other videos, and the mission of my work is to really remind the body of what it's capable of doing. There are an awful lot of remedies out there that we can get our hands on that will supposedly eliminate these microbes, these buggers, so to speak. However, that's not helping the body do what it's meant to do. See, the body we have everything that we need. I mean, how do I want to say it? Okay, so we actually do have everything that we need, and the whole point to what I do when I work with people is actually, like I said, I know I'm repeating myself, but it is helping the body, reminding the body of what it is capable of doing. Basically, synergizing all systems, aligning all systems, and in order to eradicate and protect. Again, there are lots of remedies that we are aware of and can implement. But the thing that I want to emphasize here is that the immune system is basically already stressed. How it plays out in your body depends on your individual genome. The immune system is as unique as our fingerprints, and it's a complex system. In fact, the name of it is major histocompatibility complex. It's extraordinarily diverse. There's at least 7 different layers to it that have subdivisions from there. So to take an immune stimulant, something that is going to help the body get rid of something, is a stimulant, okay? That's what it's actually trying to do. It's not necessarily going after the microbes that you are trying to eradicate. It is merely activating the immune system to try to eliminate these bugs. And all I want to say is, depending on your system, it could actually lead to even bigger problems. I just want to say, yeah, so it can lead to, it'll actually activate, it could potentially activate, because here's the deal. These viruses, whether we're talking herpes or Epstein-Barr, the herpes virus is called, it's a simplex. There's also zosters. That's what leads to shingles, chickenpox. So these viruses, and as well as bacteria such as Lyme, they go dormant. The activity that was, introduced, whether it be an antibiotic or even the natural remedies or an antiviral, will potentially deactivate them. They will go to sleep over time. They are reactivated through the introduction of other microbes. So chances are you have more than one of these in your body already. I mean, the CDC is reporting approximately 95% of the adult population is living with a combination of these microbes. And again, so to take something that's an immune stimulant in the way of a natural remedy is potentially harmful, because you're activating antibodies. These bacteria and viruses do adapt. Some people might say morph, but they do. They adapt based on what we expose them to. This is the nature of survival. This is the human body. This is what we're doing. And yes, we are host to these things. So that said, to me, a more effective way, and please know that everything that I share with you is based on scientific research, and it is evidence-based. It is, without question, it's been established. We just don't help the body. Okay. That is my partner in crime coughing up something. That's Theo. So, yeah, so it is, you can try to stress them into laying down biofilm and going dormant, which is pretty much what our conventional method is doing. And they lay this biofilm down, but I mean, just because they're in hibernation doesn't mean that their systems aren't working. And so the thing is, I always emphasize also the digestive system. And again, I'm not talking just about the gut and the bowels. I'm also referring from everything from the mouth to the cell. So we have to activate this system. We have to get it in gear, so to speak, so that it is functioning optimally in order to keep us healthy. The body is out of whack due to the environment. I'm not even going to tell you that your mind and emotions are screwing with you, although they are, not to the degree that the environment is. And this environmental disturbance that we're exposed to, which, let me just remind you, if you haven't heard these before, 45 million chemicals, man-made chemicals, currently being used around the world, which includes food additives, preservatives, colors, heavy metals, medications, elements in the air, and so forth. I mean, all of this affects the body. And what that means is that if it's man-made, it sends different messages to the system. In that case, what ends up happening, it's not a defect, it's actually just an alteration in the chemistry. So therefore, this change in chemistry leads to inflammation, also known as oxidative stress. So we produce our own oxidative stress. We actually have the ability to deactivate this oxidative stress. And that occurs when we're no longer exposed to potential threat. So if we have these bacteria and viruses living in our system, those are also considered environmental stressors. Basically, our body is in chronic survival mode. And that's the point I'm getting at. Your body is not defective. It's not dysfunctional. As long as you're alive and breathing, it has gotten you to this point. And it has been protecting you from all of these things. So, but it's not unable to get rid of these things. Like, we can't get rid of heavy metals, so we store it. We build excess fat tissue. We end up having bone marrow challenges because, that's part of the endocrine system. So it's interesting because heavy metal is stored in fat, the adipose tissue. It's stored in bone marrow, which is also in both of those adipose and bone marrow are both hormonal organs. And then of course it's also stored in the brain. But I just sidestepped what the whole purpose of this was. So how do we address all of this? Well, the one thing that is not being discussed is we have the ability, our body has the ability to eradicate the bacteria and the viruses, the harmful ones. We have the ability. Nature has the ability to regulate itself. Did you know, let me see here. Here we go, that stage. I was looking for my chamisa. Anyway, I was going to point out a plant to you, but there is none in the area at this moment. So, okay, so anyway, the plants produce salicylic acid. Salicylic acid is a signaling molecule that plants emit during times of danger. So chamisa happens to be a plant that's very high in salicylic acid, and the Native Americans used to chew on it. And apparently it was a really great analgesic. We also know it to be in white willow, and there's other plants. I mean, that's where the highest concentrations are found in various barks and so forth. But the point is, it's a signaling molecule. So you have your primary plant that releases that molecule and activates a protection mechanism in the surrounding plants when there's a potential threat. This happens all throughout nature. The good bacteria in our bodies actually has the ability to do that as well. And so the thing is that we have to figure out a way, mindfully figure out a way to help. And keep in mind, this bacteria is all throughout the body. Actually did a video once before that the human body is made up more of bacteria than it is human cells. So we have a lot of bacteria on us, and they are here for our advantage. So a lot of these antibacterial soaps, and I mean all of these things that we're using to protect us from potential these awful viruses and bacteria that are just floating around out there. I just want you to know these bacteria and viruses are adapting. I don't know that they are as effective against those. And the ones on our body, well, there's no talk of right now what's happening to the human body. But my guess is it's being diminished. These bacteria and viruses, their potency is being diminished because we're consistently doing things. The only bacteria we ever concern ourselves with is the one in the bowels. And so you might be thinking at this point, well, how the heck do I protect myself from, potential infection, Yeah, cold, flu, and so forth. You've told me not to take an immune stimulant. And you're telling us that we shouldn't be using these antibacterial, antimicrobial soaps and hand washes and everything else. So yeah, that would be confusing. So here's the deal. What do? You actually use oils. Because the oils come from the current plants around the world. These bacteria and viruses that are potentially threatening are around the world. And it doesn't mean that we have to constantly, it's antibiotic, antimicrobial, all of these things basically means it's against life. Okay, that's what an antibiotic is. It's against life. And our thing is if we use the oils in a way that promotes a healthy balance and allows for the healthy bacteria to live, we have a better shot at eradicating these other viruses and bacteria that go dormant in the body. It's a really simple thing. And I'm sure somebody will watch this or hear it and go, that's just too simple, that's ridiculous. But it's about working synergistically with nature. The body can do what it's supposed to do. And while we have these technologies that seem to make good sense, they're actually compromising our overall health long term. This is something I talk an awful lot about. So, the next question would be, well, what oils do you recommend? And I could be truthful with you and just say, it depends on your medication. I can make that generalized statement because for as many people that don't take medications, there's 3 times as many that do. 65%, I should say twice as many people that do. At least 65% of the United States population is on some form of medication. So it's important to know what you're doing because there could be interactions. It's hard to hike a hill and talk. So thanks for bearing with my huffing and puffing. So I'm thinking out loud. I'm gonna put some suggestions in the description box for oils that could be used, diffused, used directly on the body. But basically this comes down to essential oils as a lifestyle. Now, as an adult, you've been living a certain way for a certain time. It's going to take some resetting of your body for it to come back into complete stabilization. The challenge with this methodology is patience. And this is where our guidance happens. Because if we find it hard to be patient, we will give up because it looks like something's not working. And the truth is when the more natural you and the more whole, the protocol. I'm trying to figure out a better word to say it, but a complete, perfect example is essential oils are a combination of a number of constituents. All plants are. Heck, this is the reason why we have CBD oil. But to single out an individual constituent does nothing. And then this is to say, it could be being manufactured in a lab. So if you're looking for natural, you need to know your source, number one. And number two, I do not recommend individual components because when you use the individual ones, the result is going to vary between people because of what their lifestyle involves, meaning other herbs, medications, and so forth. So it's a better option to select things that are whole If you don't like to smoke pot because it makes you, it drops you, like it drops me, you can actually eat it. You can eat the raw plant. If you work somewhere where they drug test you, well, you might want to just be careful with that. But trust me on this one, there are other cannabinoids and oils. I mean, cannabinoids are not the only component that we need. They only activate the endocannabinoid system in the body. So using something that's whole is going to have a far more well-rounded reaction in the system. And with time and patience, your body will recover and improve. So I've talked about in prior videos, and I'll just briefly mention it here, I've been currently working with somebody very hands-on right now, locally, who is living with chronic venous insufficiency to the point in his left leg, or to the point where it broke out in ulcers. And he's not been the most compliant of clients until about this last month. And he was in an extraordinary amount of pain, and the person he was working with, he wanted to take time off, and they're like, you need a doctor's excuse, even though you could look at his foot. So get it checked out. He goes to urgent care. Doc in urgent care like flips out. Now mind you, it had looked a whole lot better than it did, but he flips out. They told him that it was potentially and there was an infection, which there wasn't. I mean, you can tell if there's an infection, but they still did their culture. I mean, we went through the whole process. And he kept insisting that he go to a wound care. Don't let me do this anymore. This is home remedies. Go to wound care. Well, wound care is going to want to see him every single day. They're going to slap him with antimicrobials, antibiotic lotions and whatever. And the culture actually came back with some salmonella bacteria, a very mild type of salmonella that you actually find that lives on water, which truthfully makes a lot of sense, because at that point in time it was very hot and humid. His foot was not bandaged, so he didn't have it covered, and the wound covered, and so just from sweating in his shoe while working, Theo, that's so gross. And now he's going to turn into a black dog. See his legs. Anyway, he reminds me of Harry the Spotted Dog. So, anyway, so yeah, the only infection, and then they put him on. They tried to give him antibiotics without knowing if there was an infection or not. They prescribed, of all things, in the waiting room. There's signs everywhere about opiate addiction, but then they put him on hydrocodone and trazodone. Tried to. I say they wrote him prescriptions for it. He did not take any of them. He wanted to go get his antibiotics filled because he was scared, understandably so. And I expressed to him that everything that we were doing was preventing an infection, and if he would stick with it and do what I asked him to do, which is to keep it covered and the oils on it, it would be okay. And I also expressed to him that what's the sense of going to get an antibiotic if he doesn't even know he has an infection. Come on, buddy. Bear with me just a moment. Good morning. Hey, Theo. Sorry about that. Anyway, so I told him, I said, what's the sense of taking an antibiotic if you don't even know you have an infection? So one more time, we have this blatant use of antibiotics and so forth without having any information. And after they did the swab and they ran tests on him, he didn't have an infection. There was absolutely no use to take this antibiotic, and the oils that he's using has prevented those ulcers from getting infected, and they're basically healed at this point. That's just one example of how we are overusing these types of products and potentially harming the bacteria and viruses that live, and the yeast, which is all required for our health. Why? Because the healthy microbes, the ones that are meant to be on us, actually produce chemicals, these signaling molecules that deactivate the very viruses and bacteria that we're trying to eradicate and protect ourselves from. Again, hydrogen peroxide is an oxidative stress that is produced when the immune system has been inactivated. And hydrogen peroxide is actually what's leading to the gray hair that we see in everybody. But we have to, it also protects us from these bacteria and viruses. So if you need to use an immediate remedy for something, I'd go for hydrogen peroxide in a bottle. But other than that, it's time to consider oils as a lifestyle for helping to regulate the digestive system and balance the bacteria and viruses in our body so that our bodies can actually do what it's designed to do. Anyway, let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching. Tammy@synergessence.com. I am doing $20 questions where shoot me $20 through email or Facebook Messenger, and I will answer your questions, a question, very thoroughly. And you're also welcome to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at TammyDavis8 on both. And the other oil suggestions will be in the description box. All right, thanks for watching. Bye now.